Hello friends, once again I welcome you all into the first part of our introduction lectures. I am going to give an introduction about the accounting first year syllabus. I have divided the discussion of introduction into 8 parts. The first part, the first year students may be aware, the second year students may be aware, teachers may be aware, is about the introduction to accounting, where we are going to discuss in detail about the meaning of accounting, the accounting principles, double entry and bookkeeping. I just want to mention one important definition about accounting. Some of you are aware, AICPA defines accounting as the art of recording, classifying, summarizing business transactions. This is one of the best ever definitions, and any student of accounting ought to be aware of. While this is a definition of accounting, in the principles of accounting and the double entry and bookkeeping, what we are going to learn is what are the principles of accounting, why do we prepare accounting, who are the beneficiaries, who are the users of accounting, who are the stakeholders who are going to benefit, what are the principles that you are going to learn in accounting, accounting concepts and conventions we are going to learn. Also, the difference between accounting and bookkeeping is what we are going to discuss in the first part of our discussion for first year. The second part of our discussion, we are going to learn or begin with the accounting process. What do we mean by journal, the pro forma of a journal? Journal is derived from the book called Giorno, which means daily book. And we are also going to learn the process of journalizing, which is the first part in the accounting process. In addition to this, one of the first and foremost thing any accounting students should learn world over is the golden rules of accounting. That is, how many types of accounts are there, what are the rules of accounting. Some of you who already learned, you are definitely aware there are classified into 3. One is real account, second one nominal account, third one is personal account. The golden rules for real account is debit what comes in, credit what goes out. The golden rule for nominal account is debit all expenses, losses, credit all incomes and gains. The golden rule for personal account is debit the receiver, credit the giver. In order to journalize, we must know whenever a transaction occurs, what type of account it is, what is the journal entry, how it is going to be posted, what is the debit, what is the credit. One should be aware of the pro forma of the journal, then identify what are the accounts which are affected, then how it is posted. We are going to discuss a little in detail. That is called the journalizing process. In addition to journalizing, we also will be learning subsidiary books as per the intermediate board syllabus of Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. In subsidiary books, we are going to learn about sales book, sales returns book, purchase book, purchase return book, cash book, petty cash book, and some other miscellaneous books which are there, but I am focusing most important ones. Let me just mention to you what is a sales book, what is a sales return book, what is a purchase book, what is a purchase return book. In sales book, we record all credit transactions. Similarly, in sales return book. Likewise, in the purchase book also we record all credit purchases, also in purchase returns. While these are likely to get you 2 marks and sometimes 5 marks in the intermediate board, I want you to mention very specifically that in subsidiary books we should focus in a very big way upon the cash book. For learning, although we have the single column cash book, 2 column cash book and 3 column cash book, of all the 3 column cash book is of utmost importance, not only from the learning point of view, also from the examination point of view. It is a compulsory question which gets you 10 marks. Now, the 3 column cash book, I will just give a brief introduction. In our detailed modules which we are likely to deliver or give, we are going to learn in detail 3 columns indicate your cash column, bank column and discount column, both on the debit side and the credit side, with specific focus upon contra entries. By contra entries, we mean a transaction which affects the debit side of the cash column, credit side of the bank column. That is, if you are withdrawing from the bank, if you withdraw from the bank, there is a credit in the bank column, there is a debit in the cash column. One more contra entry that we should be aware: if you deposit in the bank, in the 3 column cash book, there is a debit in the bank column and there is a credit in the cash column. So these are contra entries. So in a 3 column cash book, which is for 10 marks compulsory question, one should know that what are the various columns, how it is transacted, what are the postings which are made, with specific focus upon contra entries. Of all the things in the 3 column cash book, the only thing where students face a problem, teachers face a problem, is contra entry. And while most people are likely to score 10 marks, which is a compulsory question, if one is thorough with the contra entry, you can be rest assured that you can score at least 9 out of 10 marks. In addition to 3 column cash book contra entries, which are important, that we are going to learn in detail, the contra entry itself may also come in short bits. They might ask you a question, what is the contra entry? While this is regarding one chapter, that is subsidiary books, with specific focus on 3 column cash book. One more very important chapter that we should be learning, which is a compulsory question, called final accounts. All the slides on my left side are going to speak of this. The final accounts has 3 parts. One is the trading account, the second part is the profit and loss account, third part is the balance sheet. The trading account, debit side, we begin with opening stock, purchases, purchase minus purchase returns, wages, carriage inwards, etc. On the credit side, mostly only 2 transactions: closing stock, sales minus sales returns. The trading account, which is shown on the left side of the screen, will give us gross profit. After preparation of the trading account, we go to the preparation of the profit and loss account. The gross profit from the trading account is carried to the profit and loss account credit side, and we further account in the profit and loss account. So the first part is trading account, second part is profit and loss account, the third part is the balance sheet. The second part that we are going to discuss, where we have posted the gross profit on the credit side. In addition to the gross profit, there may be transactions on the credit side of the profit and loss account, by discount received, by commission received, by interest received, etc. On the debit side of the profit and loss account, we could begin with 2 salaries, 2 sales, 2 office expenses, 2 stationery, to carry outwards, to depreciation, to bad debts, so many other transactions. Credit minus debit. If the credit is more, you will get profit. If the debit is more, we will get a loss. So the 3 parts: first part is trading account, which will give us gross profit; the second part, which will give us profit and loss account; and the third part in the balance sheet, the final accounts, is the balance sheet. The balance sheet is nothing but a summary of the assets and liabilities. On the left hand side, you have various liabilities. To begin with, it could be capital. To capital we add net profit and bills payable, creditors, loans, any outstanding expenses. On the right hand side, that is the asset side of the balance sheet, we could have cash in hand, cash at bank, debtors, bills receivable, then stock, and any other assets like furniture, building, etc., land, etc. That will summarize If your assets are equal to the liabilities, then we can say your balance sheet has tallied. We are going to learn the final accounts in two parts. Whatever I have just now mentioned to you is without adjustments. That is a simple final account in three parts I have illustrated to you. You can find on the left side of the screen. The first part I mentioned to you is the trading account. The second part is the profit and loss account. The third part is the balance sheet without adjustments. As per the intermediate textbook, there are 18 adjustments, but I will focus for the sake of convenience on 4 adjustments because of paucity of time, also for the sake of convenience, also which are very important. Number 1 adjustment is provision for bad and doubtful debts. What do you mean by provision for bad and doubtful debts? When traders or businessmen sell on credit, there is a possibility that some of them may not be paying. Not that they will certainly not pay, but there is a possibility that they may not be paying. And so there is an important rule in accounting which says that provide for all losses, possible losses, expect no gains. Although there is 100% not certain that some of them will not pay, there is a possibility they could pay also. Based on the principle of conservatism, it's good you provide for some doubtful debts. This is in anticipation. It is not an absolute loss. It is a provision, likely loss. And a certain percentage that they experience is calculated. It could be 5%, it could be 10% on the debtors, posted on the debit side. This is one of the important adjustments. Whenever we are posting this on the debit side, we call it a new provision. New provision is given in the adjustment after the trial balance, and that we are going to post on the debit side of the profit and loss account. This is one of the very important adjustments. But sometimes what happens, you have provided for losses, could be last year. Provision for bad and doubtful debts you have provided, but not necessary that they did not pay. Some of them are honest enough to pay, or there is a possibility they have paid. But what you thought is a loss has now become a gain for you. So in such a case, we could post on the credit side of the profit and loss account as the old provision, or we could make a comparison between the old provision and the new provision. If the old provision is more, the new provision is less, the difference is profit, we are going to post on the credit side. If the new provision is more, the old provision is less, the difference we could post on the debit side of the profit and loss account. So this is one of the very key important adjustment that students of final accounts should be facing when it comes to preparation of the final account. Second adjustment is depreciation. Depreciation is due to wear and tear, obsolescence. Now why does this happen? Any asset that you purchase, like furniture, car, two-wheeler, machinery, due to passage of time there will be a loss in the value of the asset. That is called depreciation. For accounting properly, one should debit the profit and loss account based on the percentages given, and thereby, supposing you are having a machinery worth 10 lakh rupees and they say 10% should be provided, 10% on 10 lakhs is 1 lakh rupees, you are going to debit to the profit and loss account as depreciation on the asset. So your 10 lakh worth asset has been reduced by 1 lakh. It is very normal, natural. Any asset, last year it is new, at the end of 1 year of usage, the value comes down. This is the second one. Now these two adjustments are going to have a double effect. Provision for bad and doubtful debts and depreciation. Provision doubtful debts was debited in the profit and loss account. We are going to deduct from the debtors in the balance sheet. Similarly, as I mentioned to you, 1 lakh rupees on a 10 lakh worth of machinery, debited 1 lakh in the profit and loss account. In the balance sheet asset side, from 10 lakh rupees of machinery we deduct 1 lakh rupees. So it's a twofold effect. The effect is both on the P&L account, also in the balance sheet. Third adjustment, which are very common and which are repetitive, is outstanding expenses. What are the outstanding expenses? During this financial year, sometimes you were supposed to pay, but for various reasons you could not have paid. And so what we do, it does not relieve us of the responsibility of not paying. We must make a adjustment for this. So if I paid 11 months rent for a 12-month accounting year, that 1 month is outstanding, I have to debit the profit and loss account as an expense. Supposing the rent is 1,000 rupees, for 11 months it is 11,000. One more month, 1,000 rupees I need to add, 12,000 rupees I need to debit. This 1,000 rupees outstanding will again be posted on the liability side of the balance sheet as a expense to be made for. What are outstanding incomes? If I am owning some fixed deposits and I am supposed to get some interest, I did not receive the income. Outstanding income can be shown on the profit and loss account credit side as likely income in order to arrive at the correct profit and loss account. And the second effect is we are going to post on the asset side of the balance sheet, and thereby the first part of final accounts we are going to learn simple final accounts without adjustments. The second part we are going to learn 18 adjustments, but for the sake of convenience I have focused only upon 4. So this is a summary of the main important topics that we are going to learn in the first year. Let me summarize. For 10 marks you have the 3-column cash book. Then for 20 marks you have final accounts. Any student who can master these two, 30 marks are there in his pocket already. In addition to that, one should master trial balance, which can come for 2 marks compulsorily. One should also master the opening statement, which also come for 2 marks. So with 30 and these 4 marks, anyone can straight away get 34 marks in accounting itself. Trial balance, on the debit side we post all assets and expenses. Credit side we post all liabilities and incomes. For example, on the trial balance debit side, assets can be building, furniture, machinery, debtors. Expenses can be purchases, salaries, interest paid, etc. On the credit side, liabilities and incomes. Liabilities can be creditors, bills payable, loans, etc. Income can be rent received, interest received. Trial balance is correct when your debit is equal to the credit. For this you get 2 marks, the trial balance. So 10 marks for the cash book, 20 marks for the final accounts, 2 marks for the trial balance, another 2 marks for the opening entry. Assets are posted on the debit side of a journal. Liabilities are posted on the credit side of the journal. The difference, assets minus liabilities, is capital. You get 2 marks for that. So straight away one is mastering the 3-column cash book, one is mastering the final accounts. 3-column cash book for 10 marks, final accounts for 20 marks, trial balance for 2 marks, opening entry for 2 marks. One can be rest assured of 34 marks. There is a choice so far in the Telangana Intermediate Board syllabus. You can opt either to learn for 3-column cash book or bank reconciliation statement, which is for 10 marks. Now the bank reconciliation statement I will be presenting in detail at a later stage of our learning. While this is for about 50 marks, the accounting part, the pure accounting which I have mentioned are for 34 to 36 marks. It also can include journalizing for 2 marks. So you get about 34 to 36 marks and some theory like golden principles of accounting. Most students, if they are doing very well in the accounts part, you get 36 to 40 marks here and you write the theory well. In addition to that, if you do the part B, commerce part very well, you can easily score 90 plus. In my experience, I've had many students in Chaitanya who scored 90 plus in accounts. Now, the second part for a discussion is regarding the commerce part, where the first slide I am going to discuss is about the concept of business, characteristics of business, objects of business, social responsibilities of business, economic activities and their classification. I am going to discuss a little in detail what do we mean by a business, what is the difference between business and profession and employment. Business in simple words is the state of being busy, and the other aspects of business, that is the objective of a business, social responsibility of business, economic activities and their classification, we are going to discuss in detail. This is just for introduction. The second slide or the second chapter that we should be learning in the commerce part is that classification of industry. That is, how many kinds of industries are there. Second, commerce, its importance and industries, hindrances. Third, branches of commerce, trade and aids to trade. This is what we are going to discuss a little more in detail. Let me mention to you, part 2 commerce that we are going to discuss is for 50 marks. The first part accountancy is for 50 marks. The second part commerce is for 50 marks. And the current topic that I am mentioning to you, a very key topic that we are going to discuss in little detail is the relationship, distinction between trade, commerce and industry. A very key topic which repeatedly is asked for 5 marks. What is the relationship between trade, commerce and industry? The third topic that we are going to discuss is forms of business organization. Many of us are in the experience of going to small shops, which we call them in business terms or in commerce terms as sole proprietor organization or business organization owned by single individuals. What we are going to study is what do you mean by sole proprietor, what are the merits and demerits. Then we also are in the experience of going to slightly bigger businesses, which are called partnerships. 2 or 3 people starting a partnership. Then the third form of business organization that we are going to come across is the company form of organizations. Huge companies we come across, private limited companies, public limited companies. We are going to study in detail sole proprietary meaning, merits, demerits, limitations, partnership meaning, merits, demerits, duties of a partner, rights of a partner, responsibilities of a partner, types of partners, all these kind of things. Companies, how many kinds of companies are there, how it is formed, etc. we are going to study in detail. The fourth part of our discussion is the joint Hindu undivided family, also shortly known as the HUF. In legal terms, we are going to study what do you mean by HUF, who is Karta, what do you mean by co-partnership, how a person can become a member in the Hindu undivided family, what are the duties of Karta, then what do you mean by co-partnership, then some rules regarding Dayabhaga and Mitakshara we are going to study. Along with that, we are also going to study about meaning of cooperative societies. What do we mean by cooperative society? There is a very important axiom regarding cooperative society. It means one for all and all for one. Different types of cooperative society they are going to study, because housing cooperative society are there, consumer cooperative societies are there, then traders cooperative societies are there. All these, what do they do, how they are formed, how they are governed, what are the rights, what are the system that they follow, etc. While this is regarding the cooperative society, we are going to discuss a little in detail about partnership firm in chapter 5. What do you mean by partnership firm? What are the features of partnership firm? What are the rights and duties of partnership firm? What are the types of partners that you come across? Active partner, passive partner, sleeping partner, so on and so forth. We are going to discuss partner by estoppel, etc. We are going to discuss in detail in the partnership firm. All these topics are going to fetch any student 50 marks. The first part which I discussed is for 50 marks accountancy. The second part which I am currently discussing is for 50 marks. In slide 6 or chapter 6, we are going to study about joint stock companies. What do you mean by joint stock companies? What are the features of joint stock companies? What are the advantages, disadvantages of joint stock companies? How many kinds of companies are there? What is the difference between a private company and a public limited company, etc. is what we are going to study in chapter 6. In chapter 7, which is an extension of the study of the company form of business, in the Indian context, how is it that a company is formed? What are the steps in formation? Who is a promoter? What do you mean by promotion? What are the types of promoters? Incorporation of a company, registration of a company, capital subscription. These are the steps involved in the giving birth to a company form of business. So how it is made into reality is we are going to study. Company or any kind of business is a legal entity. How it comes into existence is what we are going to study. In addition to that, in chapter 8, we are going to study about the sources of business finance. Any business, whether it's a small business like a sole trader or even a street vendor or a partnership or a big kind of business like a company, in order to run, they must need finance. What we are going to study is the meaning of business finance, nature of business finance, the importance of business finance, classification of sources of finance, factors determining the choice of sources of finance, from where you should get what kind of business finances one is going to pick up, why they should pick up a particular kind of business finance is what we are going to study in the part 1 of sources of business finance. In part 2 of the sources of business finance, we are going to study about non-institutional sources of finance, and we are also going to study about institutional sources of finance, also international sources of finance. If you raise money from other than an institution, it is called non-institution. If you raise the money from an institution within India or within a country, it is called institutional sources of finance. If you raise money for an Indian business from outside, it is called international sources of finance. What are the various mechanisms? How we are going to raise is what we are going to study in chapter 9. Chapter 10 or slide 10, one of the forms of business that is in operation in our country is MSME. MSME means micro, small and medium enterprises. What do you mean by the definition of MSMEs? What way they are important in our country? How do you register MSMEs? What are the privileges that MSMEs get from our country is what we are going to study under MSMEs. Slide 11, we are going to study about MNC, multinational companies. All of us are exposed to multinational companies. Some of the young people frequent KFC, some of the young people they frequent McDonald's. They are in the habit of wearing Nike shoes, etc. All these are not Indian brands. They are brands of some other country which are selling not only in India but they are selling in hundreds of countries across the world. And any country which is operating a business, in several countries we call it MNC or multinational companies. In this context, we are going to study a very relevant, significant topic called globalization. What do you mean by globalization? The definition. The necessity for globalization. Then in this context or in this backdrop, we are also going to study, because of globalization we have multinational corporations in India. What are the features of multinational companies? What are the merits of having multinational companies in our country or anywhere else is what we are going to study. In addition to that, we are going to study a very key topic called emerging trends in business. Although it is not a very new topic now that it has already emerged, but an exposure to students of intermediate first and second year or of both Andhra and Telangana, today e-commerce is dominating the business field. We are going to study what do you mean by e-commerce, what is the scope for e-commerce, how it is beneficial to do e-commerce, what are the opportunities of e-business, what are the challenges of e-business. Today, e-business or e-commerce have absolutely taken over the normal traditional sales. The frequency of people going to shops, physically buying has reduced drastically. Even things like vegetables, food are being delivered through e-commerce platforms. And therefore, what it is, how it is affecting the people, what way it is beneficial. You can sit at home, with the click of a button you can get goods delivered at your home. Food delivered, vegetable delivered, meat delivered, books delivered. And e-commerce has also made banking very simple. You need not go anywhere. You can sit at home, use your internet, send money, you can receive money, pay your bills, and it has revolutionized. What it is, what are the emerging trends, what are the benefits, what are the opportunities, how it saves time, how it saves energy, how it saves the effort of going here and there, labor, is what we are going to study in commerce. This is regarding the first year accounts and economics, which is for 100 marks. Let me summarize. The first part, accounting, is for 50 marks, where I have focused a lot on 3-column cash book for 10 marks, final account for 20 marks, trial balance, opening entry, journal for 2 marks each, and subsidiary books such as purchase book and sales book, purchase return book, sales return book for 5 marks. With that, one can score easily 40 marks in accountancy, plus accounting theory 1 is good. One can score 45 plus in accounting alone. The second part which I have discussed, commerce, which is theory, the topics which I have discussed, if one very good, one can easily score through proper guidance 90 plus. In my own experience, I have had many students score 98, 99, which is the highest mark. I am very sure we will be able to guide you in scoring very good marks. I am speaking on camera live that in my first year of teaching Chaitanya Malkajgiri, I have taught both subjects, accounting and economics. I have had one student score 99 in accounts, 99 in economics. Her name is Miss Anusha. Her friend by name Sankirtana scored 99 in accounts, 98 in economics. I was their teacher in Malkajgiri Chaitanya. The same time I was also teaching economics in Narayana. Many students scored 95, 96, 97, 98, 99 in economics, both first and second year. So on camera I want to present that with the right kind of teaching, and it is my personal experience, there are many students who have scored 99 in accounts, also 99 in economics. So with these few words, I want to stop my presentation of the first part, that is accountancy, commerce first year, economics of accountancy part 1 for intermediate first year, MEC and CEC.